Well, here we go. My computer says it's 10:45. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to day 4 of the NEMA conference. Thank you so much for sticking with us all week. We've got a really fun session with Laurie and Betsy to kick off the morning. And before we do, we just want to say thank you very much to our sponsor, Collector Systems, who's sponsoring today's session. And for some reason, the screen share does not want to let me share the video. So let me go find it and hold on one moment. I may have closed it by accident. All right, we'll try that again. Thank you for your patience. Okay, thank you so much. And take it away, Betsy and Laurie. Just let me know when you need to do breakouts because I'll be hanging out here in the background.
Okay, cool. Hi, everybody. I'm going to try sharing screen here. Oh, share sound. All right. Does that look like a presentation? Somebody give me a thumbs up. Yay, okay, cool. And now I'm going to not be looking at my camera. I'm going to be looking over there. So pardon my lack of visual focus. So
Yay.
Laurie, let's start.
The blanket here up in my office at home. From home.
Laurie, you're sort of freezing.
So my name's Laurie again, and I am can you hear me?
Ish. Not really. Oh, no.
Oh no, hi everybody. Welcome to 2020.
We can hear you now.
Can you hear me now? How about now?
Yep, try.
Hi. Hi guys. Again, my name's Laurie, and I'd love to welcome Betsy Loring as well. Betsy, do you want to introduce yourself really quick?
Sure, I'm Betsy Loring. I'm with Exploring Exhibits here in Worcester, Exploring Exhibits and Engagement LLC here in Worcester, Massachusetts, and we'd like to welcome you all. And bear with us. We've figured out that I need to be sharing the slides. Hopefully, it will still allow us to let Laurie talk. So, Laurie, you want to try?
Sure. So I wanted to start off with Betsy today in a brief land acknowledgement. And I also wanted to recognize that a land acknowledgement is something that comes from the heart, and it's also something that comes from the place and awareness of where we are. So I am in Connecticut, and I am physically in a place which was occupied by many peoples before me, many nations, many individuals, and all of that came to be, was there for me to be able to come to today. I did put some resources for land acknowledgement closed hula. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to utilize those resources. They do come from Indigenous peoples, speaking and understanding, as well as helping you build your land acknowledgement for yourself or your institution and organization in the future. So just wanted to start off with that quick moment for all of us to recognize our teachers, and the places that we come from. So thank you for allowing me to do that for you.
All right, I'm going to go forward. So Laurie, you want me to, why don't I go through the agenda really quick?
Yeah.
So we just had our little orientation. We're going to do a quick warm up with a video just to inspire you. Laurie wants to give a little introduction for that. And then we're going to do a physical kind of game activity where we hope you'll get up out of your chair. You're welcome to turn off the video. Nobody needs to watch. Where we're going to play a little bit with emotions. And then discuss why we want museums, want us to feel what all of this multi-sensory access to content can get for helping us deliver the experiences and the learning that we're looking for. We're going to do a quick show and tell, not remotely comprehensive, but examples of exhibits or experiences that tap multiple senses. And we have a Google sheet in which we've dropped all those examples. We are going to be dropping that link in the chat if we can figure it out. We would love everybody to drop in examples that they have. This is not comprehensive at all. And we wanted to kind of crowdsource this. Then we're going to do a breakout, and we're going to try and leave a hefty amount of time for people to look at a couple of images and brainstorm both by themselves on a piece of scrap paper and then share within their groups multiple sensory access for the same content, and then ask people to, once they've done that brainstorming, look at it with a DEI lens to see if that changes how they're thinking about it, and then we'll be doing our little share out. So I think that's everything. Yeah. All right. Oh, I need to. Do you want to talk first, Laurie, before I share the video?
Sure, I'll give it a shot. Just give me a nod or a wave, everybody, if you can hear me. So what we're watching right now is a dance and music choreography in who is a remarkable ballet and contemporary dancer and choreographer. He has been filmed to watch for in this video. First, enjoy it, of course, but recognize the body and the space, and notice the connection to the environment, but also watch for the movements, the dance movements, with the relationship with the art behind him.
All right.
So I hope you could all hear that for me. Enjoy it.
Oops, sorry, this is not beginning. Okay, there we go.
I was born in Chicago, raised in Memphis, Tennessee. Didn't start dancing till I was like 11 years old. The dance style I do, it's a dance style that started with Memphis underground rap music. And that music, the way it was produced, gave us a certain bounce. When I was around 16 years old, I got into ballet. We made a deal with this artistic director. We would teach hip hop and then they would teach us some ballet, and that's how it happened. As performing artists and as dancers, we see everything as art.
All right.
So I did drop that link into the chat for this session. So if you'd like to watch it on your own, if it's a little less choppy for you later, I highly recommend it. It's just one of those really enjoyable videos to watch, and the soundtrack, of course, is lovely.
All right, let's see if I can do the next.
How's everybody doing? Good. We got thumbs up across the board.
There we are. All right. Oh no, Laurie, are you frozen again? All right. I'm going to take over for a second. Laurie, are you there? No. All right. So just to get everybody out of their chair, I know sitting down for this much Zoom gets exhausting after a while. So
I don't think so. I can see you.
You can see me now. I can hear you. Go ahead.
Or you do it, Betsy. Go.
Okay. Anyway, so we just thought we'd give people a chance to sort of use their full bodies. So turn off your camera if you feel like it. Turn it on if you want. We're going to show a number of images, all curated by, I shouldn't use the word curate, pardon me, curators, selected by Laurie. We'll ask you to sort of mimic the pose of the expression and see if you can name it. Maybe drop that in the chat. And we'll give this just a few seconds per image. Does that sound right, Laurie? All right. I'm not monitoring the chat correctly. Oh no.
Hey, Betsy, I've got the chat.
Oh, good. Okay. This might be, where's my arm? I love the expression of receiver of the gossip. All right. So, thank you for bearing with us. We wanted to give people a minute. We're going to play music so that Laurie and I stay quiet, and have you chat drop in the chat some of the reasons why we think why museums want people to sort of feel and to come with their full sort of sensory selves. I mean, obviously this is a way of building memory, building empathy and things like that. But if we could ask people to drop stuff in the chat, we can get that going. Oh, cool. Oh, no, sorry. Touching my screen. Laurie, do you see other stuff? I'm not seeing much in the chat.
I can't
Hey
find
guys,
a chat.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I'm
Yes.
sorry, this is Diane. I can't find a chat feature in this window,
Oh, it's in the Hoover.
but we can't get
Yep.
to it in Hoover. We have to go to,
So some people actually wrote some awesome stuff in the chat.
Oh, okay.
So Carrie said, learning takes place best when emotions are engaged. If we want people to be changed by the experience, we must engage their emotions. Also to Catherine, the visitor Erin said, we want visitor to feel a range of emotions to connect with the objects in our space. Hey Betsy, to allow others to understand, empathize, and connect with the art displayed. Experiencing emotions help us to make stronger personal connections that we'll remember. I'm curious that no one mentioned the don't build, so connection, possibly the opportunity for philanthropy comes well. Betsy, I'll hand it back over to you for show and tell.
All right. And one thing that we neglected to mention at the beginning is that when we were talking about tapping the non-touch senses, we took a fairly long, sort of broad look at that. So it's not just the 5 senses that were used to touch, taste, smell, sound and hearing, but also proprioception, which is a sense of your space and your body in space, and vestibular, which is about balance and sense of space. And then proprioception is sort of knowing how hard or how soft the touch that's not the way an occupational therapist would describe it, but that idea. And we're also broadening it to the senses of emotion and empathy as being other senses. So we're going to share some brief examples, and these should all, oh great, my internet connection is unstable, thank you, and now you all know. Again, we've put the links to most of these examples in our Google Sheet. Laurie or Meg, if you have a chance to, well, Meg, you don't have this. Laurie, do you have a chance to drop that in the chat? I don't know. Hopefully, we'll get it to you.
Yes, I got it.
So obviously, okay, cool. So
Yep.
if you think of things, go ahead and drop them in as well. Smell and taste, these are a few examples. Down here on the left, the Jelly Bellies and then the baby powder and the sunscreen were smell and taste. They were in a traveling exhibit that I think has been decommissioned called Memory. And it was amazing how quickly you could tap nostalgia just from a sense of smell. Laurie popped in the smell-o-vision. I have no memory of this, but apparently that was a thing for a while. And the Chicago History Museum had a scent map or a sensory map in Chicago. And when it gets to things like nostalgia, those can be really powerful, powerful senses to tap. Sound is another one. And in this case, sound is being used as data. We had people creating a soundscape, thinking about the both natural made and human made sounds. And then on the right is about noise pollution and how sound can literally impact our health. And then I'm going to try playing an excerpt of sound as data in the rainforest from a digital dome show called Global Soundscapes. We're going to see if this goes. People hearing that? We don't need the whole thing, but if people can hear that, I'm hoping you could hear it. What was powerful in that show is they did a recording in forest on the same date, 5 years apart, and an entire band of the sound had disappeared because they had lost a whole subset of their amphibians. And so there's a lot of bioacoustic research using bioacoustics as a measure of biodiversity, because you can hear a lot more animals than you can see and find. Sound also, though, it talks about listening and hearing. And it can really, in this case, we're thinking about it as a social bonding experience, and being able to really listen to other people. These two whispering dishes were installed by the Exploratorium in San Francisco out on Market Street as part of actually a project with the city of San Francisco to take a very barren public, almost defensive public space and turn it into one where there was social connection. And Laurie, do you want to talk about the sound slide, the sound that I'm about to play?
Hey, all, can you hear me? So the sound slide.
Okay, I think it's still on. Go ahead. Laurie, are you able to
So the
talk?
sound slide that you just heard was something, hey, all. Hey guys, can you hear me, see me?
Sure.
So the sound slide that you just heard was what's called a sound bath. It's activity that will kind of the idea of the mind and focus the mind. It's something that you see a lot in more more of the minority community, and that can be known for helping to quell emotions, but also have create deep connections within yourself. So that's the sound bath.
Also, one thing that we wanted to remind people, first of all, is turning out that COVID for touch is not as strong as we thought, but the next pandemic could be around the corner. So we do need to still think about, you know, touch transmission. But we need to recognize that our entire body is covered in skin, a sensing organ, and the entire body can be impacted. You can try and present something for the entire body. These foggy bowls is actually an installation by the Studio for Public Spaces in the Exploratorium in an airport. It's a much bigger installation, but just sitting there and being able to be surrounded by this fog. On the right, the dialogue in the dark, just wanted to point out that that using a cane is not just for sound, also you're getting a bit of a haptic response, so that that the sense of touch can be accessed in more ways than just putting your hands on a thing. The vestibular sense on the left is the gravity room in the Children's Museum of Pittsburgh. The floor is literally at that angle, and it really does play with your sense of space in the world. But I put the picture on the right of the sort of endlessly repeating mirrored glass, because you can play with the sense of balance and the vestibular sense without actually having to make people walk across the floor that's an ankle twister. That will mess with people's vestibular senses and give them a new sort of sense of balance. And then just going back to the fact that we are covered in skin, we're also a full body. We have sensory organs and senses throughout our body. So full body and gross motor activities can be a great way of, first of all, giving younger visitors a way to get the wiggles out. The brain, this Mazes and Brain Games is a traveling exhibit by Minotaur Mazes, who do all maze-based interactives. But you'll see that they have a number of activities that are really based on using the full body to play with a puzzle, just using the feet. Also full body on the left is a touring exhibit that has now been repurposed and is now traveling under a different name called Dino Tracks. That's, if you can't tell from the photo, that's a photo of the fossilized dinosaur footprints in Connecticut at, oh boy, Rocky, I'm blanking on the name, but outside of Hartford. And giving kids the chance to find the footprints for an entire dinosaur, they realized, yeah, they had a pretty big stride, but these were early in the Jurassic, so they weren't all that big. So it really gives kids a sense of, even though these had big feet, they weren't walking all that far. Also, I want to point out, if you can see my arrow, that bench over there, we called it the jerk bench because we loved puns. And what we had in there were speakers set as low as possible, so big woofers. And when people sat down, it triggered these booming sounds, sort of like the feeling of something heavy like a dinosaur walking by. And that is a way of using sound, but really using it as vibration that went through the entire body. We had a school for the deaf come by one time, and man, the kids could not get enough of that bench. On the right is the Holy Stoning Interactive. This is where kids have the chance at the US Constitution Museum and A Sailor's Life for Me to literally get some empathy, full body empathy for what it's like to get down on your hands and knees and grind away on the deck of a ship with a stone. So there's something about really embodying a behavior. Other ways for using embodiment on the left is what's called the bird walk at the Museum of Science. What people do, if you can see down in the image, people walk between those two blue bars and they run their hands along the blue, along those blue sort of ribbony bars. And what that does is put their arms and shoulders through the motion of a bird wing. Birds do not flap their wings up and down. They actually do kind of a figure eight. you can send somebody through that and give them a body sense of how a bird's wings work so much faster than you could possibly ever explain that. And then on the right, this embodiment is actually a program, but I've worked with the professors involved in this. Kids were embodying the solar system, and the reason for this was really to help develop spatial reasoning, because spatial reasoning is a really important step in STEM learning, especially for novice STEM learners. So embodying an activity is actually building a certain part of the brain that deals with spatial reasoning. Laurie, do you want to talk about the multisensory one? This is yours. Are you there, Laurie?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Betsy, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yay! Hi. So multisensory experience, especially with history, museums, and cultural museums, is a really extraordinary experience because you can share a lot of things over your time or whatever. This particular example, I'm in Research Center in their Pequot Village, which is a 16th portrayal of a 16th, 17th century village in most likely post-European colonization contact. On the left, you're seeing a teaching example. On the right, actually seeing real people who are in the exhibition. One is the 17th century, the other is by a lake. And while you walk through the village, not only are you walking through there's also interpretation that the museum engaged through the village. You can listen to, and we'll see what happens post-COVID, but you do have an audio, a handheld audio guide if you choose to use it through the, there are no or very
Shoot, I think Laurie just got cut off. I'm going to read the teeny tiny writing on the notes for people. So the Pequot Village pre and post, pre and post European contact. You walk among trees, wigwams, people who are cooking, talking, hear natural sound. Oh, are you there again? No, well, hear natural sounds, smell the aromas of the woodlands and the fire. So really trying to get at that
why don't you just go ahead and talk, Betsy?
Sensory experience. Yeah, sorry. Sorry, guys. This is an example also by the Exploratorium. You can tell I love the Exploratorium. This is a project with the planning department of the city of San Francisco. It's an installation called Middle Ground. And it's specifically designed to build social connection within public spaces. This is on the plaza outside the public library. This was very specifically done to not displace any of the people who were living there, people who were experiencing homeless who lived there. And they hired a number of people recently released from incarceration as docents there. But every single piece there was about developing social connection, empathy, and really, I don't know, getting people to take a new perspective on who people are. I would highly recommend going ahead and giving that a look. Now, this is another video that Laurie's person here, so she's been getting this video. Again, I'm going to have to go outside of my screen, go to a different screen. This is called Operation Underground Railroad Rescue. And what Derek Hoff, choreographer, and again, notice the storytelling and the body movement. There's both spoken word and then music, and how this really taps into the emotion.
Okay. Betsy, I've also sent Laurie the call-in information, so she might be able to call in and do audio that way.
Oh, that would be lovely. I miss her.
Please listen. I pray you have ears to hear. It's already here. Our children are being taken, tortured, and abused, sold for money, unseen and used, enduring the unspeakable, breathing fear with every breath. The silent screams unanswered, afraid and scared to death. Will anyone rescue me? Will you carry me away? Bring me to a place of no suffering or pain. Come quickly. I pray you have ears to hear, because there's an evil approaching. Oh no, he's here. There are more human slaves in the world today than there has ever been in history. And human trafficking is $1 billion industry. We must save our children from this nightmare, from this hell. Because our children, God's children, are not for sale. You are not hidden. There's never been a moment you were forgotten. You are not hopeless. Though you have been broken, your innocence stolen. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the dark night. I will rescue you. I will never stop marching to reach you in the middle of the hardest fight. It's true. I will rescue you. I hear the whisper underneath your breath. I hear you whisper you have nothing left. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true. I will rescue you. I will never stop marching to reach you in the middle of the hardest fight. It's true. I will rescue you. Oh, I will rescue you.
Okay. Now this is building back up. I did want to point out, there's a woman named Lauren King, Harvard Extension Museum Studies, who produced about that, folks. It went on to the next, just went on to the next thing. Okay. Welcome to 2020. What I was saying was, if people are interested in dance and museum spaces, again, there's a woman, oh, sorry. Too many screens open, named Lauren King from the Harvard Extension Museum Studies program, who did a dance education movement guide for museums that I heard about on AAM. And I think what Meg, I could upload that to the NEMA website, because she mentioned it during AAM, during an AAM, whatever it's called. I want to exit.
Yes, you can upload stuff to the handouts, which people can check throughout the conference. You can also be adding links back into the chat here, because
unfortunately, unfortunately, I don't have a link to it. I just happen to have her PDF, which she shared on AAM. So she is trying to get it out there. So I feel comfortable that I can share that. So I will upload that to the NEMA conference webpage and affiliate it with our session.
Laurie says she's staying on chat for right now so she can hear us, but she's having trouble getting back in. So she's on chat, and she's also dropping all the links for all the things that you've been sharing into the chat.
Okay, lovely. Unfortunately, I don't have a link for this dance in museums, but I can upload it later. So you could go back to the NEMA website, where we also have the slides for this presentation if you want to try and do it without the glitches. Okay, because this is a recorded session, we're about to go into breakout rooms, which will not be recorded. So I'm going to go through and take a few minutes to go through what we're going to do in those breakout sessions, so that those of you who are watching us asynchronously can do this exercise yourselves. We are going to present two fairly different images. There's a little bit of information about where those images came from and what they refer to, which you can use or ignore depending on your preference. And we're going to ask you to just take some time, grab a piece of scrap paper when you're in your groups, and work alone for a minute or two to brainstorm all the different ways you could imagine tapping the senses in that, what kind of sort of exhibit or educational activities you could do that would tap different senses. And then get together and after that minute or two, talk in your group. We would like you to elect one person or have one volunteer be a person who would report out. We think we can allow you to talk, and if not, we'll have you put stuff in the chat, because we do want time to come together at the end and discuss some of the things that people have come up with. So the first question is, how many different ways could you tap the senses? I'm going to go through these slides. So brainstorming one is, if you're doing an exhibit exploring the subjects in this, what different ways could you tap the senses? After you've discussed that for, say, 5 minutes or so, and I have a reminder of the kinds of senses that you could think about. And Laurie should be dropping the link to these particular slides in the chat. But we have a reminder of what the senses are if you want to refer back to that. You may want to open these slides yourself so that you can look at them while you're talking. The first picture is, this is a sea level rise. Once there's a foot more in Portsmouth, Rhode Island, talking about how often things would be flooded. And this is a very likely scenario with global climate change coming along. And the other one is, I may not say her name correctly, but Zanele Maholi has been, she's a member of the queer community in South Africa, and for a long time was documenting the community, and she's been turning the camera more on her and using the self-portraiture to explore those issues. And if you look at that closely, you'll see that that outfit is actually made out of zip ties. So those are the two images. Those are our two prompts. After you've come up with your multisensory ideas, we'd love you to, as a group or alone, think about this from a DEAI lens. We had two questions today before or just at the beginning of the start. One was about as we were reducing touch tours, how are we still serving the needs of the community of people who have deafness or deaf blindness? And what's interesting is when we start to add in smells and sounds for people who have hearing impairments and vice versa, that can start to become unpleasant for people who have sensory issues. So what are the ways in which anything that we do is excluding or potentially harmful to people, and how do we sort of balance those needs? How do we address multiple needs of different people? And does that change your brainstorming? And then if you've got extra time, if the exhibit were, if you had to take this imaginary exhibit that you're talking about virtual, which of these things would adapt well? And how might you adapt them? And then finally, if you have more time, if any of you have something you're working on right now and you really are thinking about how to do this with multiple senses, this is your chance to tap the rest of the group. This session should be all about everybody tapping each other for inspiration. So those are the interactives, and then we will come together. So somebody who's looking at the chat, do we have all of those? Is the link to that in there, or shall I?
It's in there, Betsy.
I'll stop sharing. It is. Okay, so if you give people 1 minute to go click that open so that you can look through those slides yourselves.
Okay, and when would you like me to bring people back from the breakout?
It's 11:30 now. We'd love to give ourselves maybe 15 minutes for the discussion. So I think we have like half an hour. We're gonna, so with that, we could put, like 6, 7 people in a room. Go ahead. I think we'll have enough time once you've elected your reporter outer person to introduce yourselves too. So go ahead and network a little bit.
Okay, so Betsy, I will set myself a little reminder here to bring everybody back right before noon. Anybody has any trouble, I'm going to be staying here in the main room, so feel free to leave and, come back to the main room at any point, and I will be here keeping an eye on things. So if you're still here in the main room, all you need to do is hit the go to breakout button on your screen. Hi there. You joining this session late? They should be back from their breakouts in about 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay, I was on another one, but the sound went off on the evaluation one, so I was.
Oh no. Okay. Well, they're finishing up their breakouts and they should be back in a couple of minutes. So if you want to just hang in for 2 or 3 minutes, and then they will be back to do their kind of reporting out and wrap up.
Okay,
If you
thank
want to
you.
look in the chat in the meantime, over on the Whova page, they've got links to their slides, so you can
Right.
do like a skim through what they've covered already or look at some of the videos that they've shared.
Thank you, which
bet.
I will do. Thank you.
My pleasure. Welcome back, everybody. All right, Betsy, I see you, but you're still muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
Okay. God. All right. So Laurie apologizes. Her internet's behaving just like it should on her end. There you are. Welcome to 2020, everybody. So Laurie, do you want to try talking, or are you just too traumatized to talk? Okay. All right. Let me call on somebody who, if people remember their room numbers, is there somebody from room 1? Is there a way for us to unmute them?
They should be able to unmute themselves.
Yeah,
Oh.
meeting style, so people can go ahead and, unmute.
Oh, bless it. Oh, hi, everybody. Look at all those faces. Is there somebody from room 1 who was the reporter?
I'm from room 1, but we never really elected a reporter.
Okay. Do you want to be the reporter and let the other people in the room can jump in if they think you skipped something?
Yeah, I can definitely do that.
Okay.
So we talked a lot. We spent a lot of our time on the first image. So we talked about having kind of a nice big scale model of the cityscape, and having people take the part of buildings, and then having some kind of representation of water to show, are they now underwater, and how do they have to replan the area because of that, you know, thinking of the future. We talked about having kind of smells of that marshy, oceany water. Talked about, you know, soundscape, the crashing waves, maybe sounds of the city competing with, you know, this marshland that's growing up around it. And then we kind of revisited, you know, thinking about the DEAI and how for people with sensory difficulties, we'd have to have all these senses, something that opt into, so people aren't assaulted with smells or sounds that might offend their senses or shut them down. And then we talked about maybe having some kind of a story booth or a place where you can sit in and listen to people's stories, and invite people to imagine losing their home or losing their workplace or facing the devastation of losing a historic site.
Cool.
I think I got everything right.
Yeah, that sounds like everything we were saying.
How about, I'm gonna go odds now and then we'll do evens. How about room 3? On that first image? Anybody
I'm a
know?
reporter, but I don't know which room we were in.
Oh, go for it.
Okay,
Room X.
room X. So, it was actually rather similar. We stayed focused on the map of Island Park in Portsmouth, Rhode Island, and we talked about how the most visceral experience would be to bring water into the museum, or and although that is complicated because of moisture and humidity and all of those issues, but perhaps capturing water within a window pane so that people had the sense of rising water and the sound of rushing water, and using projections in a room. And, you know, and also the smells of briny water, or smells of you know, a lot of floods come. I work on water issues, and do environmental work and so there's a lot of sewage actually when there's flooding, and most people there's not necessarily friendly smells due to serious floods. But again, those have to be controlled so that in order to not hurt people who might be sensitive, might have allergies. And then we started talking about having a board game that would be interactive, that you could move pieces and adjust sea level rise, and show how streets would get flooded, and how your route might be changed, and how if you try to fix one thing, you might knock something else out. A tree might fall over. So some kind of a board game that had lights and this sort of interactive quality. And then with respect to the DEAI lens, the diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion, you know, the most important thing is to not speculate on what people, what will or will not hurt them. And the most important thing is to include them, and include them as part of, you know, a thoughtful and nimble design team, not just as volunteers, but as paid participants, whether as a young intern or, you know, as a community member, that there's some stipend, I live in Hartford, and there's a lot of sense that you're including residents by having them volunteer all the time, but the reality of it is that we all want to be professionals or be included in a team, in a real work team. So so just to have the team be inclusive, a wide range of geographic ages, and as the first room mentioned, to have those voices, authentic voices who have had experiences, record those voices, or have them share their stories about what a flood experience, what a hurricane experience might have, how that might have changed and rendered their lives.
Cool, thank you. Anybody know if they were in room 5?
I was in room 5. I'm a recorder for that room. So it was myself, Lindsay Goldberg, Aaron Raleigh, and Diane Seba. I hope I'm saying your last name right. I tried to get you as we got cut out of the breakout room. But when we talked about in terms of kind of setting up an interactive and an exhibit, it kind of feels along the same lines of the first two groups, is that we thought about using like a big fish tank style model and kind of have some buildings inside of that fish tank and being able to watch the water move in and out of that fish tank and being able to watch it in a sense of if it was kind of an everyday tidal event, kind of what a super moon or a super tide event, and then thinking in terms of what's more of an emergency or disaster event like a tropical storm or a hurricane, and kind of seeing how those different events impact what might be going on within that community in that town. We also thought about having kind of the smell of the tide. So again, like Mary said, kind of that briny water smell happening as well, but also kind of that sound of the water coming into and out of the tank. It doesn't necessarily need to be a loud rush, but would give us kind of that feeling of what was going on through there. You know, some of the questions we thought about asking out to participants would be, what would you save if your house was being flooded? Or what would you save if your house was being flooded 3 times a month? How would you kind of manage that within your household? And also, how would you feel if you lost your possessions? And then we also thought of kind of a secondary side exhibit to go along with this too, that would be, again, kind of reaching back out into the community, doing things like sharing flood prevention tips, flood safety, talking about environmental impact, but even having an additional kind of, I know it's mostly hands-free, but we thought about a hands-on interactive with like, how do you load a sandbag and what kind of work does that take? And or doing something small like carrying like 1 pound sandbags from one table to another and thinking about, you know, this is just like a small scale of what you would need to prevent flooding at your house, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of physical activity. It's a lot of movement. It's a lot of lifting and kind of going from there. In terms of kind of thinking of the DEAI, you know, we realized that a sensory experience might be too much for some visitors coming in. So Aaron kind of talked a little bit about making sure that we have an introductory story and an explanation that there will be sounds, there will be movement, you know, you'll feel things within this space, and letting participants or parents kind of make that decision if the exhibit would be a right move for somebody with sensory issues. And that's a little bit more where we focused on versus kind of stretching out of that accessibility part. And then if we had to go virtual, kind of thinking about how we could put this together for something at home. And we thought about, you know, people at home, most people have a bathtub. And if you are a parent of small children, you most certainly have Legos in your house. So thinking about kind of, you know, if you fill the bathtub up to this level, how much does it flood your Lego house or your Lego city? If you fill it up to this level, this is a little bit more like a super tide, or this is a little bit more like a tropical storm. And then Diane also had the idea too, in thinking in New England, where we're a lot of wooden structures, of what happens to something that's a solid like a Lego versus a material like a wood. And Diane even thought about the idea of doing something like building a little cookie house and kind of putting that into the bathtub and thinking about like how that reacts when it has a lot of water kind of pumped into it and what happens to those hard cookies in that situation. And then question number 4 was just other things that are going on. Aaron just wanted to let people know that Gore Place, which is a traditional historic house museum, has an astronomy event coming up tonight, and you should check their website for it.
Cool. I just looked at the time, so I think unfortunately we're going to have to switch to the other. I will mention there is a museum in Finland. I mentioned this to my group called Eureka, and they did a climate exhibit. They flooded their gallery. They literally put a foot of water in their gallery and gave all the visitors boots. And they had to walk through the gallery in boots. So yeah, and every American, they won an award from the Science Museum field. This was like 10 years ago or something. And of course, every American was like, yeah, our insurance would never let us do that. And their collections was below that gallery too. But that's how full body things could get. Cool. So switching to the next image, how about a group that hasn't spoken yet to talk about whether people, were there groups that got to go to that second image? And if so, pipe up. Well, I'll start with what our group did. We didn't get to questions 3 or 4, so because we did both slides. We, in our group, spoke about one was really focusing on the emotion and saying when you looked in her eyes, just getting people to really think about, like, because her eyes are so compelling. What do you see in her eyes? What do you imagine she might be saying to you? What do you want to say to her? What do you want to ask her? We also talked about the outfit was made of zip ties. So giving people a chance to construct something out of zip ties, or maybe even wear it and feel how uncomfortable that might be on the body, and talk about, you know, why do you think somebody would make something that felt uncomfortable? What else does that sort of say about the image? I also happen to have shared other work about other information about her, and she had done a piece about her mother as a domestic worker. And so we got into a lot of questions about multi-sensory of what it would be like to be a domestic worker in South Africa. So did anybody else talk about that image? Are there groups? No, I don't see any hands raised. No, cool. All right, well, going back to the first image then, while we have another minute, is there one more group that would like to share about that? Meg, I see your face coming. Are we good on time still? We still have a couple minutes, right?
Yep, 3-minute warning. You're good.
Okay, 3-minute warning. I will mention while I'm waiting for somebody else to pipe up, there was a traveling exhibit about climate called Seasons of Change. Pretty much every science museum in New England had that one. There was a New England version of it and a Southern US version of it. It was specifically designed to talk about emotionally meaningful signs of climate change. So it talked about shell modeling, the modeling of shells from ocean acidification around lobsters and things like that. It talked about maple sugaring, and there was a graph of a guy who had been tracking how the maple sugaring was happening earlier and earlier every season. So, you know, there were some interesting ways to get at that. Anybody else? No. Wow. Well, I don't know if we want to belabor it. I might say to people, please add to our Google Doc. I think that's been dropped in the chat. If you have other examples of exhibits, we'd love to create something that could be more broadly shared. Meg, I don't know if it's possible for us to share a link to a Google Doc on the website, or is that just too weird? It's usually PDFs, right?
Sure. I mean, you can include it in a handout, like a PDF people can download, and then they can link it, or you can drop a link to the Google Doc in the chat for this session, and people will be able to get back to it after.
Excellent. Cool.
Hey all, can you hear me? Wave, do something if you can hear me. Yay! So in the chat on who knows? I'm not going to ask any questions today. There is all of the links that Betsy has mentioned, all of the videos that we've been sharing on the NEMA website. Someone had a great question about grant resources for accessibility. So I did some quick research and posted a few options. One is the Christopher Reeve Foundation, another, of course, Mellon Foundation, NEH, NEA, but looking at multi-sensory experiences are something that grantors really like seeing that nowadays. So thank you for joining us, and I'm sorry my internet and computer.
It's 2020.
It's 2020.
If you're from Massachusetts, look at MCC.
And kudos to Betsy.
Anyway, thank you all very, very much. Thank you for bearing with internet and life. We really appreciate all of you. It was really helpful to have you all here. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Nice to see you. Bye.
Thanks, Meg.
You bet.
Poor Laurie.
It's all right.
No, I
It
know
is.
what.
It is what it
It's
is.
like fine now. Like everything fine now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go have my small breakdown.
Oh, please
And then
don't.
I'm gonna go on 12:30 meeting.
You're good. You're good. Thanks,
Thanks,
Meg.
guys.
Bye.
Take care.